Rupert is really quite an interesting character, and we chose him because there's something that you have to do with these types of dogs that you don't have to do quite so much in many other types of portraits. There is a significant thing that you have to do with this that does make a significant, use that word again, difference to how your portrait will look at the end and how you actually work with it. And this is what I wanted to talk about in here. So look, I'm just giving this away for you because I think it's important. And if you are seeing this elsewhere, that do pay attention to this. So it is important. So let me just switch over to my other camera. I've got to sort of move things around in here. This is not my normal platform for where we sort of do this stuff. This was completely and utterly impromptu. So I'm just going to swap over to here. Right, so there's good old Rupee. Sorry if your name is Rupert, and I don't mean to be rude by calling you Rupee, but I mean people call me Bobby. I hate it, Bobby. Bob. I don't even like Bob actually. I just don't. Not me. That just doesn't like Bob. Okay, so right. So this is one I just finished for our friend members area. So a black cocker spaniel, and the interesting thing about something like this is the way that I would draw her would be differently to how you would draw something like a cockapoo or a cocker what do you call them, a labradoodle, and that type of thing. And I was just trying to think what Rupert is. It's probably it's kind of a labradoodle, isn't it? I think really. I'm not too sure on them, but I think that's what he is. So something like Misty, which is a cocker spaniel, there is a difference with the way that you draw them, and if you don't get it right between these two types of dogs, I'm not saying you draw a cocker spaniel and a labradoodle and saying that they are the only two types, but you will find that these types of dogs, the cocker spaniels, and actually most of the dogs are quite similar in how you draw them. Labradoodles and things aren't. They are quite different. And the thing that makes them different, now you can see it on here, let me just show you on my mouse, assuming you can see this, is to do with the way that the fur is lined. Actually, I'm not sure you can see my mouse on there. I probably need to swap back over and then there we go. Yeah, so that's what we need to do. There we go. Good. So the thing that's different with these types of dogs is when you're drawing them, it's all about where you start. Now, I know that a lot of people like to start with the eyes or the nose, which is all great and wonderful. The problem with doing that with these types of dogs is that everything is forward in these, and it's all about how do you get perspective, how do you get the depth that you want. Now, if you kind of don't do it this way, and I say it out of experience because I've done quite a few of them, is that if you don't do it, you tend to get really quite a flat drawing. So what you want to do with these is to actually literally start at the back. You see, everything ends here. That's the final point in the picture, just where the nose is, that will precede how your eyes will look at the drawing. So your eyes beam straight into this lovely big brown boof of a nose you can see here, really nice, lovely, but will then sort of traverse their way back down the picture towards the eyes and back up to this nice Superman curl at the top. Look at that, it's a great little curl, isn't it? Absolutely perfect. And then maybe, but I'm just talking about what my eyes are doing at the moment, so then come back to the front. You've got this real big treacle, look at actually sort of golden syrup, isn't it, where you just caramelize the front of the mouth. Lovely, love these colors here. So by working at the front and going, I'll start here and I'll draw this bit in and I'll do this coloration and get these lines in, and then is the problem is that when you work at the front of here first, everything overlaps this side. So then when you start working on these sideburns, so to speak, is that you've drawn in the side here, and then when you start to add these sideburns in, your pencil mark, whether it's pencil or paint, or it really doesn't matter what media you're using, the principle's the same. And the principle is that when you're working this way, forward to back, is your marks are going to go over the, but aren't going to go over the top. So your shadow line is also going to look a little bit odd. So it will end up flattening this and this together, and trying to get this working so this looks like it sits behind this is actually quite difficult. And that's fact, it's very, very difficult. And it just takes a lot of work to then try and not have this sort of pencil looking like it's just sitting on top. And this will apply to every single layer that you work on from the back to the front. And this is why you want to work and start at the back. And even if you know, but I love drawing the eyes, I've got to draw the eyes, they're amazing, it's so beautiful, it doesn't live without the eyes, it's just what's happening, you got to do the eyes are most important, most of the eyes. The problem is the same thing. So the eyes, if you look here, let's get really straight into that. Look at that. That sits right on top of the eyes. So if you do the eye first, then which is your back, then you've got to do this next. So if you're starting at your front and you kind of do all this and you're popping this, I'm not sure what we call this. There's your sideburns. There's your sort of beard, mouth, muzzle bit, and that. Well, it's not really a moustache, is it? I don't know what you call that really, but muzzle hair and top of the nose hair. Is that if you do all this first, then you've got to try and work that eye in afterwards, and that makes it difficult. And then your colours start to look a little bit wrong as well, because you're working the colours on the eye based on what you put here. You want to work the colours of the eye based on your overall portrait, because that's what makes sense to the way that you see it. So you actually want to start at the back. Your first place is, if you're right-handed like me, will probably be around here. So you're just getting these colors in and you're getting these layers in, so that when I lay on to go to the next layer in, well, actually even further back than that is that one there. That is your first, some of these are your first bits that you're probably going to start on and getting some of these colors in. So if you don't do that, it just makes it a lot more difficult, and you're then sort of trying to retrofit your colors, your shades, your depth, your darkness, all into the portrait. So by the time you sort of started here and worked your way back, you've lost the whole point of what makes this dog what it is, and that's its shadow layers. Look, you've got the dark shadow layers at the back here, then you've got your next well, actually probably here's your next one, that Superman curl, then you're coming up to this here, even these sit on top of here, the big eyebrows. That sits then behind this, that sits then behind this, that sits then behind this, and this here, and that sits behind the front of the nose. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 layers, effectively. And if you don't do it this way, you just end up with just one big flat layer. And that's why we're doing this dog. Apart from the fact it's really quite cute, and I think Rupert really does actually suit him a lot. And then, of course, you've got this wonderful thing that people go, I don't know how to do curls. How do you do curls? They're so hard. Yeah, they are. And that is a secret to them. And that's what we're going to do on the workshop. And the same with here. And how do you get this? There's a secret with all of this. And a lot of this is all to do with DNA. Ha! Yeah, absolutely. And this is the biology of the way that our DNA is structured in what we do and how we do it. Not how we do it, because we don't actually do DNA, but it's how we as humans, how biology actually configures our form. And you can see it in this dog, and we cover that. I covered a bit of that actually on the line art drawing, which you can get if you haven't yet on our resources page. So if you have signed up, it's there ready for you to go along and play with, and I talk a little bit about that on there. So that's what I will be covering on this workshop, and it's really fascinating stuff. So, and it helps you immensely with your art is when you start talking about form. And yeah, you're going to love it. It's going to be a really great workshop. Really so looking forward to this one. Apart from the fact that he's a bit of a cutie, isn't he? Let's be honest about it. You know, this gorgeous treacle look on him is amazing. So yeah, sorry, I've got this horse up here. I've been working on him for about 4 years and still haven't finished it. So he's kind of sitting up there at the moment. So hopefully trying to do something with him. So let's get back to myself on here. So yeah, actually no. Let me just chuck it back again to Misty, and so if you look side by side, you don't really have this layering as much as you do with Rupert, but it's still an important thing. If I'd started on the ears first, then I'd find it difficult to kind of work at the back here. And the same here. There is some layering, but it doesn't have as much depth as Rupert does. Now, if I just go to, where are we? Sorry, just moving some of this stuff off the back here. The German Shepherd that we did, that I have a tutorial for. Again, there's really not a lot of layering that's going on here. There's a lot of it sits forward. It's really quite flat. It is different if the picture is turned around, but from this angle, there's not a lot. Probably here is your major layering, and probably just a little bit around on this ear. Most of it is actually quite flat, a little bit underneath here, and that's your kind of shadow area. So not a lot on that one. So really important. And it does make a huge difference. Obviously, with something like the German Shepherd, with something like the German Shepherd, what we're doing differently with that one is you're trying to create depth, not with how the layers work, but with the tonality, with your brightness and with your brights and darks, your highlights and your lowlights, and you're trying to pull those through. And that's what you're really trying to do with that. So it's not looking flat. You're trying to create that contrast. And then this is the kind of science stuff that I get into on some of these pastel pencil weeks. It's not really science, but it is. But it's not like I'm talking like Brian Cox. He's far more smarter than me. See, I even said that. I mean, what terrible English is that? Far more smarter. Crikey, it's terrible. Shoot me. So when you have your animals, what you're trying to do is to create depth, and how you create depth is by using your darks and your lights. That's what helps you create depth. If you don't have it, then the less you have, the flatter it becomes. So the more you have, the more depth you have, and the more color variation, the more depth you have as well. But you don't need to put hundreds and hundreds of colors in there to get it. So it's then about understanding. Well, how much depth do you actually need? Now, the great thing about Rupert is he's got that. He's got tons of it. Well, he's got 6 layers. We've just said that, which is in mathematical terms tons. So that's really one of the key things that you're going to learn about, with Rupert, is how to actually define these layers as you work forward, going through to him, because it does make a huge difference when you've got your portrait, and and you want to have this realism, but you don't want it to be flat. If it's flat, then you've effectively just got a cartoon, because that's how cartoons work. They are very they're flat, aren't they? Although weirdly enough, actually, the way they work is also on depth perception. And when Disney, Walt Disney and Disney companies started doing these, so that they realized that in a similar way to what you might have had when you was younger, my English is getting better, is that you have one of these kaleidoscope things, these things you put on your eyes, these 3D things, and you see a background image, you see a midground and foreground. Now, that's your minimal cues of how you create depth. You want your foreground, midground, and background. Actually, I've just swapped them around, haven't I? So when you're doing that, your background is going to be blurred, because our eyes tend to focus on the thing that we're looking at, and what's behind that we don't focus on, so it becomes blurred. So this is how you can artificially create depth in something, is you start to blur the background, and then as you have your midground, which is your main focus and your hero shot, then you're going to create that in more focus, but you don't need to go into super high detail. And this is where a lot of people kind of get a little bit sort of stuck with that, as it gets overly detailed all in that sort of mid-ground. The place where you want the detail is on the foreground, is probably on something like the nose, but you can balance that, and this is as much about where do you want someone's eye to go, where do you want them to look. Well, most times it's probably going to be around the eyes anyway if you're looking at a portrait, so you probably do want to center that kind of detail around here. So if you're coming around doing the front of the nose, then you probably want to have less detail, otherwise someone's eyes will look at that nose. So if you've got a very high detailed nose on the dog, then their view is going to, their eyes, they just can't help it, will just keep coming back to the nose. But if you want them to look at the eyes, which is where we generally look at animals, humans, and biological things like that, then that's where you want to spend the detail, is in this plane, not that plane, and not this plane. So having the whole portrait as detailed kind of is a bit detracting from where we actually want people's eyes to look. And that will give your portrait this sense of realism as well. And this is what the Pastel Pencil Week's about. It's about using illusion of how we see biologically and physically to look at things and reinterpreting those in a way onto canvas, so people go, wow, that's cool, that looks real. And so we use this, the framed method, which is something that I've developed over the past 5 years by modeling hundreds and hundreds of people, and then looking at people who are really good artists, and work out what are these things that they all do that's the same, and looking at these patterns that they have, and then I defined it, put it into a model, said this is it, test it on my own stuff, and said, well, actually this is how we do it a bit, and also mixed with my kind of psychology and sort of science background, put it all together and said, this is actually how we draw this. And it's not just related to pastel pencil either, it does also work for colored pencils, paint, watercolors, graphite. The only thing I'm not too sure it does work for is this tissue paper. I'm not sure about that one. It might do. So yeah, that's it. So Rupert is our Pastel Pencil Week drawing, and he's cool. So if you haven't yet, and you wanted to, if you want to know how to draw and how to, really get good in a very, very short time frame without spending 10 or 15 years trying to get there, because trust me, I've seen a lot of people take 10 or 15 years to get there, and it's just like, it's such a shame. Or even have that kind of struggle and the heartache that you go through of going, I just can't get it right. I can't get it right. What's not working? Why can't I get the colors right? Why are my colors not working? Why is it out of proportion? Why is it out of perspective? Which then roughly translates to, why am I no good? I will never be an artist, or I can't draw, which is a real shame, because it's not a natural talent. It's not something that you're born with. You go, oh, I'm born and bloody hell, I'm an artist. Wow, how did that happen? There are some things that we are biologically predilected to, art being one of them, but it doesn't necessarily inform us that we are going to be talented in that area. It is as much what happened to us in our former days and at school, sadly. If any of you have seen our post about our daughter and her art teacher, gosh, where did that come from? Crazy. Thankfully, not all art teachers are like that. Some are absolutely amazing and wonderful, and a lot of teachers are. So if any of you have read that and thinking teachers are rubbish, they're not. There's some flipping amazing ones, and I love you for doing your profession. Thank you. Honestly, it can be a thankless task, but honestly, if you are a teacher and you teach, thank you, because without you, we don't get to be where we are today in the things that we do. And I know some of them just kind of messed us up in other ways, but hey, c'est la vie, that's life, isn't it? So yeah, Rupert, amazing, come along, you're gonna love it. It's gonna be a fun 4 days. It's not 4 days fully, it's going to be about an hour and a half each day at the most to sort of do that. Yeah, and if you haven't yet, the ones that other people draw, they're really good. They're really, really good, and these are people who've never drawn before. They're just like, wow, you did that, and you thought you couldn't draw. It's because of the framework. It shows you how to do it.